A weaver uses this newly spun thread to create cloth in the form of blankets, scarves, towels, and cloth to sew together to make more complicated pieces. But the process of weaving is much more complicated than many believe. Like many trades, the most important aspect of weaving is design. But to understand design, one must understand the basic weaving terms used when creating a pattern. Weaving itself is defined as the interlacing of long strands to form a smooth, close, and inseparable surface. Remember all the thread that was spun from the wool of a sheep? They all get interlocked with each other to form fabric. How do the threads interlace? Well, with the loom, of course. The loom is a very simple device, even though it may appear complicated. Looms can vary from an extremely simple frame to huge and multi-shafted. For the sake of simplicity, we will be looking at a simple 4-shaft jack loom. This loom is comprised of several main parts: the frame that holds the entire loom together, treadles, or pedals that are connected to 2 slender pieces of wood called lambs. The lambs pull downward, pushing a jack upward, creating a V that pushes up a shaft. On this shaft are hundreds of pedals which are used to hold the threads in order to create a pattern on the fabric. The threads are tied at the back of the loom onto a warp beam, through the heddles, then through the reed, which ensures proper spacing between threads remains, then tied to the cloth beam. As a weaver works, he or she will grasp a large bar that contains the reed, called the beater bar. This ensures that the fabric is packed properly to keep it from unraveling. Most looms have a brake and an advance lever that allows the weaver to advance the fabric as he or she works. Now, regarding the threads, there are still a few more things a weaver must do before weaving. He or she needs to understand warp and weft. Warp threads are the threads that are positioned vertically when a weaver sits down to work. These threads become the base of the piece and must be stretched taut through the loom to allow for a clean weaving. Weft threads are ones that are sent back and forth through the warp threads horizontally. To move large amounts of weft back and forth, a weaver uses a simple device called a shuttle. There are many kinds of shuttles. Some look like popsicle sticks, others resemble boats. In any case, the shuttle is an essential tool for the weaver. To ensure that the threads interlace with each other, the treadles are pressed, raising certain threads. This is called a shed. The shuttle is passed through the shed, the threads lowered by releasing the treadle. Then the weaver packs the thread by pulling the beater bar closer to him. The process then repeats, raising a different set of threads. It is imperative that a weaver plans his project appropriately before beginning. Once a weaver knows what they want to make, it is a matter of dimensions that will determine how much thread will be needed. The most important questions to ask are: how long should my project be? How wide? What kind of material do I want to use? How fine or coarse do I want my end piece to be? This worksheet becomes a weaver's best friend in calculating the materials needed to make cloth. He or she can then make the threads necessary for the project or purchase them. If you think fabric is made yet, think again. There are countless ways to weave a fabric and various weave structures. Plain weave, twill, basket weave, rose path, and log cabin are only a few examples of the different structures. To create these patterns, a weaver follows what is called a draft. These drafts are made up of 3 parts: the threading pattern, the tie-up, and the treadling sequence. At first glance, the draft seems complicated, but breaking it down into sections, a weaver can tell exactly what he or she will do. The threading pattern instructs a weaver on how to thread the heddles, the hundreds of long eyes that are positioned across each shaft. The threading pattern is read from right to left. Each number represents the shaft the heddle should be threaded on. The tie-up is in the corner of the draft and indicates which treadle should be tied to which shaft. Remember, when the treadles are pressed, the corresponding shafts will lift, raising only those threads. The treadling sequence instructs the weaver which petals to press in a specific order to create the pattern. This is usually read from top to bottom. The cooperation of these three parts of a draft makes up the pattern you see in a fabric. It sounds awfully complex, doesn't it? Weaving can be very time-consuming, but with practice it becomes second nature. When a weaver is done, the fabric is complete and can be removed from the loom and can be sewn into clothing or hemmed as a scarf or towel. The journey from fiber to cloth is an amazing one. The next time you shop for clothing, take a close look at the fabric and take a moment to remember that what you hold in your hands once came from animal or plant fibers, was heated, combed, twisted, stretched, and beaten to create something to wear and enjoy today.